Over-policing and domestic militarization won't make communities any safer, particularly for people who are already disproportionately targeted by law enforcement, but Republicans keep pushing anyway.
Caroline, I know that the president can do this for 30 days if he notifies the right committees in Congress, which he did. There were some stories the Democrats were spreading the narrative. We don't need the National Guard in there because crime has gone down around 30%, 26%, I think, this past year, and 35% the year before that. And then we heard those numbers might be inaccurate. They might be false. And some people were let go or they were suspended, right, Brian, from their jobs because of it. Can you clear that up for us? Are those numbers correct?
Yeah, these numbers are absolutely correct, and we will continue to provide the American public and the press with the numbers because we're proud of these efforts. If the Democrats had their way, there would be hundreds more criminals roaming free in the streets of the District of Columbia right now. There would be hundreds of more illegal aliens who this task force has already detained and arrested, and now they are focused on deporting from our country. Those individuals would remain in the District of Columbia where they would have been free to do more harm. And that's not counting all of the would-be criminals that may have committed violent crimes and maybe taken the lives of law-abiding residents of this city, if not for the deterrence.
So President Trump is going to step in where he needs to keep these cities from being overrun by a culture of lawlessness, or in the case of LA, from being burned to the ground. This president is a man of action, not simply task forces.
You lived in LA, and you know that those protests were in a three-block radius, and those National Guard troops sat around on their butts until they were released. If Donald Trump started trying to take charge of Republican-run cities, and they exist, go to Oklahoma City, right, and talk to them about the violence there. He never says anything about that. He doesn't talk about murder rampages in red states. He's only targeting blue states. And the fact that he ignores the statistics, and Kash Patel snuck in there, right, with the decline in the murder rate. And we have the video of Donald Trump from just back in May touting the 25% decrease in crime there. The stats don't align with the action.
So I would have much more respect for Pritzker if he'd call me up and say, I have a problem, can you help me fix it? I would be so happy to do it. I don't love, not that I don't have the right to do anything I want to do. I'm the president of the United States. If I think our country's in danger, and it is in danger in these cities, I can do it. No problem going in and solving, his difficulties.
The statistics don't support their approach. Crime rates aren't any higher in these cities than in red ones, and yet federal troops and paramilitary-style policing are increasingly deployed where they're least needed. It punishes everyday citizens, escalates tensions, and diverts resources away from the programs that actually help communities.
The highlighted yellow of those states sending their National Guard to D.C., right? I think we've seen this playbook before from the president, and it won't be the last time where he is using this issue as a political one, right? He is trying to make the case that he needs to intervene because Democratic-run cities are out of control in his parlance. And that's clearly not the case, backed up by data. There are a whole host of other cities, primarily in Republican-led states, that have higher crime rates, but that's not the focus for this president. We've seen him go after Chicago, LA. This weekend he was tangling with Governor Westmore of Maryland and talking about Baltimore. There is a playbook here that the president is using, and it's mostly driven by his politics. And one of the things just to note about Chicago, Chicago's crime rate has actually been decreasing and at times has been at pre-pandemic levels. And so this focus on this out of control crime is misplaced based on where the data is. Not to say that there's no crime, but if you really look at the numbers, it is not the sort of picture the president is
heard him. I remember when Republicans were the party of states' rights, right? DC's a little different, ain't no state. But the other cities that they're talking about, those are in states where there are governors, where there are laws and how those governors are able to handle what's going on in their cities. That doesn't seem to be the case. What happened to states' rights? Where's that at?
I mean, the Republican Party isn't necessarily known for ideological consistency here, right?
Oh, what do you
think? I know that's
well, at least not anymore.
Not anymore. But yeah, I mean, the interesting part of this is that this is clearly not about crime, right? Because if you look at Axios just did a study, right? 13 of the 20 U.S. cities with the highest homicide rates are in Republican states. And guess who isn't naming those Republican states? Donald, right? There's three things that these states have in common, these cities, right? Blue cities, blue states, black mayor. It's like they ran it through a chat GPT prompt. It was like, give me back the states, the cities that have these parameters, right? Because as we see, DC has a declining, violent crime rate, 30-year low, 26% down from this time last year to right now, right? And obviously with these National Guard troops and generally, it's illegal for them to do any civilian law enforcement, right, under the Posse Comitatus Act, right? So he's pushing the envelope here on that front, as Miles has outlined. But generally, it's authoritarian spectacle because he feels weak right now. And I really think that's important to frame. This man has a 37% approval rating in the latest Gallup, right? And this is 3 points away from his post-January 6th low of 34%. So Donald Trump is 3 points away from being at his absolute political low, right? So that's the context from which this is happening. He's doing this authoritarian spectacle to deflect from his mounting scandals, to deflect from his weakening.
And the party's backing him.
And the party is backing him because they think they can make up for those losses through the gerrymandering.
Crime is a reality we all face in this country. Public safety has been among our highest priorities since taking office. We have hired more police and given them more funding. We banned assault weapons, ghost guns, bump stocks, and high-capacity magazines. We invested historic amounts into community violence intervention programs. We listened to our local communities, to the people who live and work in the places that are most affected by crime, and asked them what they needed to help make their neighborhoods safer. Those strategies have been working. Crime is dropping in Chicago. Murders are down 32% compared to last year and nearly cut in half since 2021. Shootings are down 37% since last year and 57% from 4 years ago. Robberies are down 34% year over year. Burglaries down 21%. Motor vehicle thefts down 26%. So in case there was any doubt as to the motivation behind Trump's military occupations, take note. 13 of the top 20 cities in homicide rate have Republican governors. None of these cities is Chicago. 8 of the top 10 states with the highest homicide rates are led by Republicans. None of those states is Illinois. Memphis, Tennessee, Hattiesburg, Mississippi have higher crime rates than Chicago, and yet Donald Trump is sending troops here and not there? Ask yourself why. If Donald Trump was actually serious about fighting crime in cities like Chicago, he, along with his congressional Republicans, would not be cutting over $800 million in public safety and crime prevention grants nationally, including cutting $158 million in funding to Illinois for violence prevention programs that deploy trained outreach workers to de-escalate conflict on our streets. Cutting $71 million in law enforcement grants to Illinois, direct money for police departments through programs like Project Safe Neighborhoods, the state and local anti-terrorism training program, and the Rural Violent Crime Reduction Initiative. Cutting $137 million in child protection measures in Illinois that protect our kids against abuse and neglect. Trump is defunding the police.
The Republican agenda isn't about safety or efficiency. It's about consolidating power. It's built on scapegoating, fear-mongering, and the intimidation of communities that challenge them. By militarizing American cities and expanding surveillance on ordinary people, they're effectively creating a domestic police state and normalizing it, getting you to be used to seeing troops in the streets. Dissent is monitored, protests are criminalized, and marginalized people live under constant intimidation. Over-policing blue states doesn't make anyone safer, but it does serve Trump's real agenda. It reinforces inequality, deepens social divides, and normalizes a government that treats its own citizens as enemies of the state.